Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight, I have from Central Florida as well, the young 20-something Professor Pixel. We're continuing our review of Dark Shadows Revival, of course, Season 1 from 1991, I believe. And Professor Pixel, I have to suggest to you that tonight's episode 6, is a major turning point. We're going to jump right into it in a minute as people start joining and listening. This is about the time when the Gulf War was going on, when some of these episodes are getting preempted, because it's the main reason why a lot of people felt that this TV show got canceled. And like I said before, I remember my parents telling me all about this show, saying, hey, it's a real popular show. Oh my God, I can't believe they're trying to redo it. And it was actually enjoyable for a new generation like myself as a kid in the 80s. And of course, you weren't even a twinkle in your parents' eyes till like the late 90s. So this is a first watch for you, which is exciting, as the only living person that's seen all the original episodes. But I couldn't help but think about what we talked about last week in episode 5 about how things seem like we know where everybody's at, what's going on. We're waiting for the big hammer to drop, and it does so in here, because in this episode, we get the big ballroom dance, cucumber sandwiches, a seance, Sarah, hunky man meat. We get it all. Minor Willy violence. I'm thoroughly satisfied, satiated by this episode here, too. I just want more. What's your initial take on this?
Oh, see, it's very troubling because this is the one episode that's not on YouTube. It's a very important episode, so it's very odd that somehow they let this one slip through the cracks. But I am so glad that I was able to find it, because if we had to skip this, I might have been heartbroken.
No chance that would have ever happened. Anyway.
Yeah, so with this episode, we have the major turning point at the end, like we said, and it's going to. I'm very excited to talk about that, but we have to start from the beginning. And
how does the beginning start?
The beginning starts in the woods. Willy is taking Carolyn back towards Collinwood.
No,
And
time out, sir. You're jumping ahead by about 2 minutes.
I am not. That's how it starts.
Oh, I got the voiceover on my episode.
Oh, well, I have voiceover too. Did you want me to start how I normally start? My name is Victoria Winters.
Yeah, that's for all the people out there that love the voiceover work. I apologize, sir, for butting in, but I felt that was
it's
important.
okay. It's okay. No. The intros are very important to me too.
But in the intro, she mentions and tells us what's going to happen, and that's been a theme, right? Somebody else is going to get whacked tonight, allegedly, or something, right?
Yes.
So that's so important. We just gloss over it with the theme, which is, of course, captivating. But go ahead.
No. I listen. There's a specific tone of voice that Victoria Winters carries in the original show, and somehow Dan Curtis has found the woman that can capture that perfectly, because she does it here too. But before we can go through the mist of time, we have to address Carolyn walking back to Collinwood.
Yes.
And poor Willy, he's just saying, okay. It's like he's guiding this poor animal who doesn't know any better. Go ahead right through the door and go get yourself a nap. Go ahead. And she has a scarf now to hide the marks. But he's kind of just whispering to himself, everything will be okay. Carolyn, everything will be okay. Everything will be okay. And he's getting less and less convinced as it goes on. And eventually, Carolyn does get inside, and she just kind of blows everybody off. Doesn't really care what's going on. Oh, Barnabas is coming. No need to worry. And then there's like one more scene, and then I'll pause, and that's with Barnabas. He's dressed for the evening in his classic colonial wear, rich colonial clothes. And Willy's just trying to have a conversation with him, get on the level. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and let you take the conversation.
Yeah, it's interesting because we get the voiceover, we're sucked in, we know what we're getting. So even though we might pop forward a little bit, we we know what's going on, what to expect. So our standards kind of continue being a bit high when it comes to, hey, can they continue? Can they improve? Where's it going to take us? And what's delicious about this too is I've said this is a very sensual show. The episodes too, and I'll mention a few more key scenes later on. But the one thing about Carolyn that I have to sit there and say, we know she's supposed to be on character, at least the first time we saw her with Hunky Man meet this the sex pot of the show, where is, you know, the complete opposite is, you know, Victoria, where she's supposed to be like the virginal, innocent type person or whatever, despite her stunning natural good looks. And in here, I just simply have to say, when Willy's walking her through, you go, man, he's so friggin' phenomenal with this hurt puppy dog kind of loyalty thing. He just wants to please everybody. He's got those puppy dog eyes. And the thing about Willy is he looks so friggin' grimy every time. And I don't know how much they charcoal or paint up his face or if it's natural, but just that disgusting 6 o'clock shadows, like amazing. And I just think, okay, here's a dog following, you know, somebody that's hurt home and trying to be nice. And I thought, you know, when a dog gets beat on enough, what's going to happen? And I don't know if that'll turn into something, but we've already kind of talked about how people have roles. And with her, that leather blue dress is strikingly sexy with it, but I almost feel like they were desexing her a little bit because she's kind of walking. She does a very good job of just kind of like floating through it. And the fog machines aren't 110% running here. Um, and then we get to see our main simp Barney sitting there. And it struck me that we know we're going to have a big, huge ballroom dance, allegedly, sort of thing happening today, or party, whatever you want to call it, extravaganza, which we'll get to in the next scene. But there's not enough stuff where you have candles burning and people watching actual fires and fireplaces anymore. And I thought, God, I just love the feel of the show watching it because you're right. When you sit there and say, well, I get to play an aristocrat and dress up in old fancy clothes, part of you poo poos that and feels it's too whatever. But damn it, this guy Cross fucking pulls it off here because he's got the giant feathery, it's not an ascot, but whatever you would call it in the front with the ruffles and all that. You're like, this is good shit. And we get the long flowing cape. Everybody flows in their gowns tonight. And honestly, I could watch an entire episode of nothing but people in old clothes and the food spread, which we'll talk about next. But we get the big tone of Willy being scared here. And I think that's what you're trying to point out.
Yes, yes, and his conversation actually with Barney, because he's very scared for Victoria now because of the state that Barnabas is in. Yeah, he wants to listen. Barnabas, I just want to make sure, guy. You know how you get. And Barnabas admits that he does know how he gets, but that's why he's going to have to cut things off. The developments must cease for her sake.
Doesn't it make you just want to take some of those stupid lines and try to do that? Because you cannot do that at 97, 98%. You've got to be 100% sold in. Otherwise, it comes off as pure camp. He really toes that line so well. I've said that, I think, in every episode.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, he's got it down. Did you love Joe now seeking and Carolyn not giving a shit too?
Well, the thing with Joe, I call him Hunky Man Meat because that's what I think his role is. I actually thought he matured a little bit in here, except for the fact that he follows around like a simp in here. And I thought, okay, that can't be ultimately be what his main role is going to be, because we get this a huge extravaganza next where everybody's dressing. We've got the orchestra. It's a much small one too. We've got the finger foods. We get a beautiful spread. Everybody's dressed up in 17th century stuff, like 1790s, I think it is, if I recall correctly. And I just love this because we know where this place is at. We've seen a lot of things shot in here. Everybody's got their own costume. And no, for you younger people, it's not a Tom Cruise sex club ripoff of anything like that at all. This is no Eyes Wide Shut. But man, everybody's got an individual costume. And it makes me think, well, are they just dressed up as whatever, or are they dressed up in roles that we're going to be having to start talking about next week, if you know what I'm saying, based on how this episode ends? But this whole little spy stuff, as I like to call it, in our monthly James Bond review, where you're following people, watching things go on. That's great stuff because we got Willy, who shaved. Actually, we can see he's got the little cuts on his face and everything too. We see Barnabas come in and all that. We see him react, and then the doctor, she's in there watching everything going on. And I got to say about her a little bit later, but we get cucumber sandwiches. This like
Yeah.
Moonraker. We get flowers everywhere. We get my boy Michael Cavanaugh back here, and he's just, I want more of him, please. this show, even though it's halfway through, technically, still could go in a lot of directions. But I
It-
thought this scene was great. The only thing that kind of derailed it to me was we get to see Sarah
yes,
watching the festivities, which makes us go, "Oh, this is way too short." And of course, Victoria looking like Joe said, going, "Well, do I look like her?" And he's like, "You are."
you are
Joe
her.
said, and the way they frame it too, it's pretty neat. It's pretty elegant. Everybody's here, even the
Yeah.
uh, people that run the house and all that too, are just. It's great. It's very captivating. It doesn't rush, and we get the old scene where Barnabas goes outside and he's looking off in the distance. She comes out. She's like, "What's wrong? You've been avoiding me." And he's like, I'm expecting him to say "shat" if he hasn't already, because I haven't heard that yet. But he says something along the lines of, uh, "I've got something to tell you. I just don't think you'll believe me." And it's the old classic, and then of course they get interrupted, so he never gets a chance to tell her whatever he's going to tell her. And she just looks divine in here with the curls in her hair pulled up in a very classic pearl necklace and earrings, saying, "My God, what just a standard natural beauty." You don't see this
hmm
in modern shows
She
too much today.
she is really beautiful. I do want to kind of talk about the scene with Barnabas once he enters, because uh, Julia goes ahead to Willy and says, "How's Barnabas doing?" And Willy is just trying to move right along and not talk to her. And then when Barnabas comes in, he knows he can't be near her. And Barnabas is pissed.
He is.
So
He's fuming.
yeah, yes. And so when Julia tries to come over, and he goes ahead and he does this, "Oh, let me go ahead and let me keep up appearances." But when he looks at her, you can just see the hatred spewing. And as he's saying, "No, thanks to you, I am what I was." It's perfect. It's delectable. Um but it's just such contrast, because there is in the classic series a party as well, but it does not involve everyone in Collinsport like this. In fact, it's run by Barnabas, as he's trying to slowly seduce Victoria into time, as it were, into being his Josette. So it's just such a stark contrast to see Barnabas like, "No, I have to protect Victoria Winters," at this point in his life. But eventually the party does wind down, and they're playing with a what's it called?
It's the after party, baby.
Yeah,
This
the
is where the
after
real
part,
parties always happen, when everybody gets kicked out home.
the Ouija board. Uh,
That's right.
it's Maggie and Roger, and they're playing this. They're playing a game. As they ask some stupid questions. What will Maine ever secede from the Union?
That's the thing, though. Maine is considered like that a lot. Seriously, that's and it may not seem that appropriate now, 30 plus years later, when this census aired, but there's definitely a sense of hardcore freedom up there in the Northeast in some states. New Hampshire, live free or die. And Maine is another one, and I don't think of it as an overly political thing, but that's not just a throwaway line. I don't believe.
Yeah. No. I'm not saying it is, but Roger has such a wit in the classic series and in this series, and in this one, he exemplifies it.
Okay,
I think he did an excellent job. And Roger doesn't take any of this shit seriously. Like he
like he
thinks this is
takes her seriously because he's sleeping with her.
he takes her seriously,
And he
but
knows that there's something supernatural because of what he experienced. Remember his near heart attack that she was with him with after they had relations in the art studio?
yes, but it's still him, as he's saying, "Well, we can't stop now,
I
Elizabeth."
know, it's good stuff.
Uh, and pretty much the sheriff is there, Sheriff Patterson, and there's a nice touch where he dances with Elizabeth earlier on in the episode, and
Mhm.
uh, it's implied that they could have had something in the original series, but then he got recast and it just fell apart. But here we get to see him. "I can ask anything I want, right? Is the danger that plagued us still around?" "Yes, and yes, and what's the first letter of their name? C. Is that the first name or the last name? Last. And it gets right to where they're asking for the first letter when Barnabas has been making eyes at Carolyn, and Carolyn knows what she has to do. She throws it. This is ridiculous. She's gotta protect.
This is so funny.
Yeah. No, and you get Julia also making the eyes at Barnabas because she's worried too. It's so hard to see her and think, okay, well, she was hurt, but we'll address that matter later after some teeth gnashing and some cousin biting.
The thing with Julia, I'll go ahead and say it now because, yeah, you and I think, disagreed a little bit up to this point about where her place is because I think, if I accurately portray this, suggest that she more or less is under Barnabas's gentlemanly spell in a sense, not the vampiric one, where she's interested in him. And I just don't believe it. I think it's something more and something different. And the reason why I say this, I'm going to double down on my position, is in this episode, and we'll talk about another scene later on, she's got some balls. She has no problems confronting him, seeing him, despite knowing what she is from the very beginning. And I don't think there's a romantic / sexual interest on her part in him. I just don't believe that. I don't believe it's a power thing where, hey, this is a powerful creature that can get me whatever I want. I'm not getting that. And the more I watch and think about this, episode as we're talking about it, I go, she's got some crazy balls, because in here, like you say, she knows Barnabas is controlling him, right? And now we know in this episode, several people are aware of what Barnabas is, but not all. And I think that's kind of cool too, because when's it going to come out more? Because you can never put the lid on it unless somebody dies. But just them staring at each other and moving the thing around and all that. This is kind of fun. You don't see seances too much anyway, unless they make fun of them. But the next scene, kind of the pigtails of this continuation, is again, cue up the fog machines late at night. She comes out. And I got to say this, I think she's supposed to be a natural redhead. I don't know if the actress really is. She's got on this slight light pink body dress or whatever that she's sleeping in, this gown. She's absolutely gorgeous too. Maggie. So the women in here are just absolutely beautiful in their own way. They really are. There's not an ugly duckling among them. And we said before with Barnabas that it's just contact lenses and only 2 fangs. It's not some ridiculous Blade 2 vampire teeth gnashing thing. But they take literally about a minute where he summons her out and just looks at her, and she's rubbing his chest and all that, and he turns around, and this is very erotic. This is a really sensual scene. This is good.
It's more than he was with Daphne, and Daphne was even more of a distant cousin, so that's a little weird. We're in Maine, not Alabama. No.
Don't you talk bad about the South, sir.
Hey, I was born in the South too, so I have the right. But there's the scene is very drawn out. It's very
I liked it.
It's good in this disturbing way.
That's what I want to see. I mean, I want to see that. That's good stuff. That makes you feel it. That makes you, double down on, what's going on here, and that he's not going for the sad sack 90s version of what would turn into vampires ever since then, of wimpy little 150-pound soaking wet boys that you go, yeah, I'm not afraid of you. Barnabas, yeah, we've made fun of for being an old school romantic and how it's out of place in the current time this is filmed.
But he's terrifying.
But he's got that good mix, and as campy as it is, I'm telling you, the women are gorgeous in here. I only wish we both had a high def version to see how cleaned up this would be. That's the thing. I think it would be even more stunning.
Yeah, it could be. So we get to the next morning, and we get to go ahead and see as Carolyn has she has her errand. She goes into the antique shop, buys an apothecary set with
this
Joe.
Is the same place we saw, was it Maggie having coffee with Victoria talking about things, correct?
Right on the edge. So you can see that cafe, and then the antique shop is right there. It's perfect. You never get I think there's only 2 episodes in the original where you actually get to see them outside in an actual oh look, this is the town.
Right.
and other than like set locations like within the antique shop. And so when you go ahead and get to see as Carolyn's like, I need this. And he goes ahead and gives her one. Okay, well, you know, this is original 18th century, but you'll have to be careful. Some of the things in here, while they may be old, are still quite poisonous. And then you can see her look at the arsenic bottle, and you know exactly what's going to happen as it's time for tea with Julia.
I was this is the cringiest part because I love the little daytime scene change here because we don't see the town too much. And when you play a game like say Alan Wake on PC or like which is basically inspired by Twin Peaks, which you and I have covered here on the Extreme Movie Show, all episodes and the movie, it's you feel like you're part of it. So sometimes these little scenes can add a lot of value to the show as a whole by just interrupting it for a little bit. But Hunky Man Meat here, of course, he's falling around. She won't talk to him. He tries to grab her hand. She pushes it away, and I'm like, "Boy, you are a simp, bro. You're just like that love hurt kind of guy when you're on the boat ignoring her sexual advances till you gave in. Which okay, whatever. I guess you're a stud. You can do that. But this is preposterous, and I don't mind some camp, and I don't mind some being absurd, but we're under the assumption that Barnabas knows about it, somehow communicate it to her, hey, even though we had this nice erotic scene, I'm going to go make you buy this specific piece in a specific little part here in town that I haven't thought of until just now, the night before. And even though they get it for the bargain base price of $35, negotiated down from 100, I'm going, I love the clocks. I love everything back there. It felt like we're in there. And then this, of course, it infuriates me because you're right. We know what's going to happen. We know that Julia's going to get whacked here with arsenic, but what fucking person carries an apothecary bag? That's not bad because I'm sure many people do, but to have a conveniently, beautifully labeled in old manuscript, long pen form, arsenic on there that you can clearly see is just outrageously insulting. But I'm going to let it go because of Star Shadows. But
Yes,
you get,
yes. But the Dark
you know what I'm
Shadows.
saying?
Yeah,
It gets one. I'll give it one. It's earned one up to this point. Okay.
yeah. So, but we do get the great scene after as she's trying to make the tea, and oh, do you take anything in it, Julia? And as she's about to drink it, David coming in and saving the day.
I love
No,
the
you
scene.
can't drink it. It's poison.
Yeah, it's great for a lot of reasons. One, I'm going to go the other direction. I love the fact that the way they shoot it, where they have Mrs. Collins, the elder Collins, and Julia sitting there, and he comes out screaming hysterical. That's how we've gotten to know him. But I love the fact that when they're shooting this, you know, she walks up and sets the tray down, so you see the two ladies in the back on the side there, so you can see her sneaking and trying to dump the powder in there and all that. Looks like a bouillon cube or something. But I like the little tray of sliced lemons there because it looked like someone said, "Yeah, just cut one up there because that's what you do with tea," and it's true. I love the delicate intricacies of certain things like here because they also even ask for cucumber sandwiches, and then when he knocks it out of her, yeah, it's gonna happen, like, as an actor or an actress, but it's cool because he gives her a nice little good slap there, and an actress, you kinda see where, like, almost hits her in the face. I'm like, "That's good shit. That's good acting. I
Yeah,
like that."
yeah.
He was really himself in this scene.
Yeah, and then as Elizabeth tells Carolyn, take him to his room, and he's like, I know my way because he knows something's up, something's wrong. And that pretty much leads us to the scene of her going back to her own room, and you can see Julia wants to have a conversation. I want to talk about Barnabas Collins, and there's just such a manner. There is, and the original Carolyn had the way to tap into her internal brattiness and bring it to just full force. This one does it too. Where Barnabas Collins. You want to talk about Barnabas Collins? And this is where she kind of reveals everything and says, "Then tell me something, Julia. Why did you hurt him?"
You're forgetting the most important part about this scene.
Oh, the
She
music.
interrupts her and she turns on her bratty phase here by turning on her custom sound system straight out of the 1980s JVC kind of catalog with 4 or 5 different big metal pieces and speakers, and interrupts her so rudely with jazz. And it's the sexy sax kind of jazz that was popular on light jazz stations in the 80s. This is phenomenal. And the film noir part to it, where she's talking to her and she basically lets her know, I'm on to you and you're going to have to pay for it. She takes out the old classic wooden match, lights it, and then as she finishes, she goes, and blows it out. I'm right now, I've gone from 100 to 0 to 110 with that scene.
And then we get more teeth gnashing, but it's not the teeth gnashing you think. No, Barnabas is standing out there and he's like, and you could see as Carolyn's like, yes, Barnabas, grabs a knife and walks to Julia's room.
This
and
is horrible.
Yeah, and she's like stabbing it and screaming. And then she backs up and she's about to just leave the room because she thinks job's done. But Julia's actually alive.
It's the old classic, I'm going to fluff up the pillows and, make it look like my body's there while not really laying there, because, the long-winded title for this episode would have been, what would we call it? Julia by Butcher Knife, by What's Her Face, in the bedroom, or by Arsenic with tea in the tea room. And, to kind of go all cluish on it, this is a little absurd here too, but this kind of emphasizes for a moment the fact that, again, Julia's got some balls. She confronted her in a room. She knows what's going on here. And this is just a couple hours later. So Julia must be eliminated at all costs. And as soon as she opened it and she had the butcher knife, you know she's not going to get stabbed. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But we do know. But it's still, it's to that point that you're like, oh, yeah. This is it. And when she's confronted by Julia and she runs away
like a brat.
Yeah, it's great. And that's
not as bad as the brat and Taken or some of these other films, but yeah.
And that's when Julia runs to the old house, goes inside. Why are you doing this to me? I'm speaking to Barnabas now, Willy. And Barnabas, he is just done, so done with Julia. He said at the party, and there will be scores to be settled, and it looks like he's about to do it here. And you know what? I think this is actually perfectly touching upon how it was handled last time.
How well was handled last time? What do you mean?
Well, because what you're seeing here is a condensed version of events. Some minor changes, but a condensed version. So Julia does have a moment like this where her life is in peril from Barnabas. And suddenly, boom. No, Barnabas, no. From Sarah, little Sarah. And it makes Barnabas stop everything. He was about to just feast on Julia right there. But Sarah says, you gotta let the people who want to help you. And that there's a great danger coming. You have to go back. And poor little Sarah, she gets a second of like holding Barnabas's chin, my dear brother, before a howl from the past emerges in the stairwell. A witch from long gone.
From 1983's Haunted Mansion here in Orlando, Florida.
It's far more delectable than that. Delightful. And Julia forgets that she was about to be a snack 2 seconds ago, as soon as both ghosts disappear. And she asks, what is that? And Barnabas has a great line where he basically gets to say, I told you there were evils in this world that you couldn't even conceive of. That is Angelique. And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was disappointed, one, because he's rocking the hardcore Armani outfit here with the turtleneck, complete black, head to toe. They didn't go, Angelique. He only says it kind of like in a different way, but I guess that's the way it was written. But this is the scene I was thinking of earlier when I mentioned that Dr. Julia Hoffman's got some balls, because she's like, fuck you, Barnabas. You're going to come at me, bro? I'm going to get at you too. What the hell's going on? And the point is that she knows what she's walking into. And I don't think she's doing it. She's doing it in a little bit of a hothead manner, but she's not stupid. So that's why I've always felt like she's got some ulterior construct of what's supposed to be going on, and she does it rather bravely, if not almost slightly foolishly here, knowing that, okay, there's twice been an attempt put on her life. And there is the minor Willy violence happens here where when he turns and he goes to assault her, he just shoves Willy way down. And a part of me goes, what happens when you beat on the dog too much? Eventually it's going to bite you back or turn. And I don't know if Willy's going to get that. I don't know if that takes the kind of slight little joy or goof in Willy's character out of the way, but I could see where, if depending on how serious or dark they want to make it or turn it occasionally, they could do that. Because to me, this scene sets it up. Okay, there's Angelique. We know it has something to do with the past, and you're right. Everything happens here. And to me, that scene is pretty much this entire episode if you only had to watch a minute or two, right? The next stuff, which pretty much finishes up the show in this episode at least, which we'll talk about here in a moment, is interesting, and I like it. But that scene to me is what everything's about right there.
Okay. Well, I thought it was going to end there. Honestly, I thought the important part of this episode that is going to take place in a second. I didn't think it would be here, but they managed to fit it in. Maggie gets asked by Julia, "Hey, can you run the seance for us? We need to contact a little girl that people are seeing." And Roger and Elizabeth agreed off camera that they would do this.
Yeah, they get right to it.
Yeah, they get right to it. They put their hands together in a circle, and they are ready to speak to, well, at least try to speak to Sarah. And there's something very important. It's very rare that a physical presence will occur during a seance. However, use a vessel. I wish I could go ahead and just point you directly to the original episode of this, because there's a touch there that's like really great, but they don't have that here, and that's fine, because this is where it's important. The one who is sensitive to these specters turns out to be Miss Winters. And yeah. Sarah speaks through her, saying that yes, she's Sarah, and that that everyone here will be destroyed unless someone can go back and try to fix things. And I know you're struggling here, Rob, but you've got to trust the system.
What am I struggling with?
Well, yeah, I know how you feel about the certain essence of time. And time seems to break here. The candles go out, the doors burst open, lightning flashes, and they all look towards Vicky. And now there's just this strange blonde woman there.
It's not just any strange blonde woman. It's a scamp. It's a scallywag. It's anybody from a Charles Dickens novel. It's a French maid. It's a coal ash
she
child
doesn't even get a line
from the coal mines of Pennsylvania or Collinsport, Maine, because we have no idea who the hell this bomb woman looks like, too, because that's what it is. And she's got the bad teeth and everything, and she's not unattractive, but you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, is this the jump the shark moment? Oh, my God, I don't know. And yes, you're right, that's where I'm struggling. But I knew it was going to go here.
Yes. Well, this woman collapses to the ground, and Vicky's nowhere to be seen. So they take the girl to bed, and they go ahead and look through some of her items, and Roger actually finds the answer and says that, well, we've got a lead on that front, and reads out this huge long letter saying that Miss Phyllis Wick is absolutely the governess you want, and the date is from the year of our Lord 1790, and I just want you. They don't say anything, but you can look on Barnabas's face. He knows things. And Maggie is the one who gets to explain, well, I'm pretty sure this means that if Miss Phyllis Wick is here, that means Victoria is where she once was. And that's the end of the episode. That is our drop-off point. And it's going to definitely shift where this series is heading. It's also going to be very confusing for me because this this little glimpse into time that we're about to get in the series consumes it all. The present is dead. It is quiet. It is frozen after Vicky finally arrives where she's heading. And from what I'm seeing, it's implying that this is going to go on. The present isn't stopping, but the past is about to unfold for us. And boy, oh boy, am I excited.
You know, I couldn't decide if this should have been the last scene or it should have been the other one because the other one's a bit more shocking. So it's hard to say. But again, yeah, we definitely have not really come a long way, but we feel like a lot of time has passed from the beginning episode because it's been a couple months, I believe. And I don't know how I feel about the letter writing, and when I say that, meaning I don't know if I like it or hate it, because to me that's kind of like a weak way of getting across the point of what's supposed to happen here. And I definitely don't like the time travel aspect. I kind of would have liked the hey, let's go back to the 1700s, understand, fill these characters out, then jump back in. And you could see where they could have done this for like a season, then gone back to present time or whatever. And again, not knowing how the original show goes, I don't know what to expect. What I do like is how people here have various levels of understanding what's going on. And when I look at the scene, wasn't drawn into it as much as the others because I go, well, as much as I like The Invaders, a Quinn Martin production, you have Roger there reading the letter, and I thought, oh, they're just doing it one to make it easier to explain to everybody what the hell is going on, but it gives Roger something to do, which is read a letter. And while I wanted more Michael Cavanaugh, the sheriff in town, I'm not quite sure, but I think he's a hard ass, and I don't know if they'll stay true to form whatever his role is going to be. Now I think the first thing that comes to everybody's mind is, okay, it's not who's this woman and how they flip because she's the Victoria from way back when. It's okay, what are the roles going to be that the present people have way back in the past? And are we going to see all of them equally or not? Are we going to understand all that? Because we're going to assume we're going to see that the history does repeat itself. But the whole you must stop what has already happened kind of thing that Sarah says, I've never liked that stuff because it's already happened, so you can't undo it. And we can do the sci-fi timeline thing and all that. And I just don't like it, but I get it. I just they need to do it well for me to not get too pissy about this. Really, honestly, is the only thing I could say. And Maggie just looks really alluring in this scene for some
Yeah,
reason.
she does.
I don't know why.
Uh,
She just does.
she's got the power. But with it's definitely going to be interesting to see how they handle it because this is such a momentous uh time for the original series. And so for it to finally come here means that we're going to have to see how they are able to handle this. If they're able to train it well enough. I can tell you that at least originally, this is where everything is explained. Things aren't really handled. They are explained, and we get to see what happened in the past to bring us to our present. And I'm very excited to see where this goes.
Halfway through, and I got to tell you, just when things are starting to get good, like I said at the beginning, as we close out this episode, it's exactly what I recall from the early 90s watching this. And that's when things are just really awesome and starting to go, okay, now I get what's going on about it. Again, the episodes being preempted, they weren't necessarily on at the same day or time or whatever. And so that's where its ratings went down the toilet. And that's been the death of many TV series where they move it around trying to hope to keep it alive or use it to bump something else or bump it in lieu of something else. And it, it's distressing in a sense because this has been so juicy so far. And unfortunately, we know we only have 6 more episodes to go. And we've gotten a lot about the characters, gotten to know them. We can emphasize with certain ones. We're watching them. It's been very enjoyable. And despite any convenient plot device like the letter writing or time travel, which I'm not big fans of too, it is nice to see that the letter is written really nice, old school manuscript. That's kind of cool. I popped for that and some of the effects. But yeah, great episode. Looking forward to covering episode 7 next week with you here on Xtreme TV. So I'd like to thank everybody showing up tonight who listened and letting people know who we are here at the Xtreme Movie Show and enjoying what we have to offer when it comes to going over some of these wonderful shows, sometimes a first watch or new, or even more importantly, things that you guys suggest. So if you have any, let us know. I'm your host, Rob, Professor Pixel, and everybody involved here. Have a good night and always stay extreme.
And remember, Dark Shadows is a Dan Curtis production.
Good night now.